Well, hello once again. This is Jim Watts with the Tulsa World, here with Jimmy Trammell with the Tulsa World. We're both writers for the Scene Department. This is I believe, our 12th episode of these scintillating video conversations.
But the first,
Ah,
the first where I'm wearing my Plenty Scary Movie T-shirt.
that is
So we're breaking new ground today from the old
great.
Plenty Scary Movie.
I feel lucky if I'm able to get dressed before these things start. So anyway, well, speaking of movies, scary and otherwise, what have you got coming up for this weekend?
Yeah, speaking of retro, I mean, this Plenty Scary Movie was, back in the day, and we all loved it back. People who watched it, but the Admiral Twin is turning 70 this year. They've got a big bash this weekend. I'll get around to what they're doing to celebrate their 70th. But as part of the 70th anniversary celebration or commemorating that anniversary, I thought it would be interesting to go around and find the locations of former drive-in theaters that are no more in Tulsa. I mean, I've found, I think in addition to the Admiral Twin, there were 11 drive-ins in Tulsa and the suburb. That's a lot. That surprised me. Does that surprise you there were 11 drive-ins?
I knew of about seven. I knew about some. I knew about 11th Street and Riverside, and I think there was one called the Airview. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it kind of backs up the Admiral Twin almost. It's on
Okay.
and more on Sheridan on Pine.
Okay.
But
and
the interesting thing was, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying no. I remember there was out toward the western side of town. There was the Capri, which was the adult movie drive-in theater, which I thought for any place, but for Tulsa especially, seemed a very odd business model. But you never know.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were going on.
Well, I'm going to go back to something you said. Did you ever see one at Riverside? A movie at Riverside?
Yes, I did. It's the only, yeah. We went to go see the Poseidon Adventure.
There's no visual evidence there was a drive-in movie theater there now, 71st
Right.
Peoria and Lewis. And I'm told it was where the Red River Apartments are now. Does that jibe with you, if you know where that's at? The Red River
was,
or the other side of what used to be the Sheraton Kensington, the Marriott?
yeah, I think I was maybe 12 or 13.
Okay.
And so I wasn't terribly aware of, I just knew we were going to go to the movies, which was a very rare.
You were playing with your Etch-a-Sketch when you should have been paying attention to where you were at on the highway.
Exactly. So
And what was the other one you said you went to? The Highway 66?
the 11th Street. Well, to us, it was called the 11th Street Drive-In.
But that was at 11th and Mingo.
Right. Yes.
And I tried to exact the location for that one, and it appears to be on the east side of the 11th and Mingo intersection. But again, there's businesses there, and you can't really tell. There's no sign there was ever a drive-in movie theater in that spot.
Well, if memory serves me right, it is now a church. It's the site of a church.
Okay. Yep.
Way back from the road. And in that expanse between where that building is and the street, that was where the drive-in was.
Okay.
So I remember that I conjure that up from the distant swamp of my memory. So,
well, of the 10 drive-in theaters, or 11, I forget the number now, other than the Admiral Twin, I did find evidence, like visual evidence, like, hey, there was a movie theater, a drive-in movie theater in this spot. So we'll write about that in next Wednesday's Tulsa World at tulsaworld.com.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. The big thing that speaking of looking forward to, we're coming up to the Centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre, and on Sunday we'll have two stories associated with that. One is an interview with the great granddaughter of Mary E. Jones Parrish, who wrote in 1923 a small book about events of the Tulsa disaster, was the original title. And this is kind of ground zero for historians about the race massacre. I mean, everybody goes to her because not only did she write about her own experiences, she ran a shorthand and typing school at 103 and a half North Greenwood. And so she describes, the sounds of violence getting closer, and finally she and her young daughter managed to get out of their house, and they talk about taking the following the train tracks north to 56th Street North before they finally found some kind of refuge. But she also interviewed about 24 other survivors and recorded. She had been trained as a journalist.
Okay.
And so it's very concise. I mean, it's maybe about 120 pages, and for it was only published privately and in small amounts. But the reason we're doing that now is it's just been republished for the first time for a mass audience by Trinity University Press, and Annalisa Bruner, who is this woman's great granddaughter, wrote an afterword for the book, and she will be in town to take part in several events, including a talk this coming Tuesday with Magic City Books, and taking part in the John Hope Franklin Symposium. So that's one thing. And then the other is Wednesday kicks off the Greenwood Art Project, which has been 2 years and $1 million plus in the making. This is funded in part by the grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies that we got in 2019, pardon me. It isn't COVID, don't put on your masks. And we talked with the program director about how the thing has evolved and many of the events. There are more than 30 different events at more than 30 locations throughout the city, starting March 26th through June 5th. So it's a huge undertaking, but it's got some really neat stuff in it. So that's something to check out this weekend.
So many events related to the Centennial.
And including, I believe in Friday's paper, we'll have the complete schedule for the Black Wall Street Legacy Fest, which will include the first performance for Fire in Little Africa, the hip hop Tulsa music collective that has an album through Motown. They announced today, by the way, that Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band will be a featured artist on one of the tracks on that album, which is really neat that you got the artists of today connecting with Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band, who's
Sure.
a great career. It's interesting you mentioned about the train tracks when talking about that book. I've watched several of these of the Black Wall Street, not several. I've watched two of the Black Wall Street documentaries in advance, and we had a piece in Wednesday's Tulsa World.
Right.
Find and watch all the documentaries, but one thing that just kind of stuck with you is that people were wearing multiple pairs of clothes as they walked away from the massacre down those train tracks, because you wanted to bring as many of your possessions that you saved with you, so people would just wear multiple sets of clothes to have them as they go on to wherever their destination was. It's very the documentaries are really enlightening, by the way, and I would recommend them.
Yeah, it has been hidden for so long, and to now have this incredible. I mean, the news side of our paper is going to be putting out in the coming days a 64-page section of the coverage that they have done about the Tulsa Race Massacre history and how it still affects and the community today and how we're trying to heal from all this. And there's, as one of the people that involved with it said, you know, it's amazing that after 100 years, we're still discovering new angles, new stories to tell, new facts, new things. So look for that coming up. I'm sure we'll tout it widely. But
if you want like a feel good story, you know, not so much. I mean, that past needs to be uncovered, but we've got a feel good story also about National Brothers Day, which is Monday, and there was a Tulsan who lived his life in excess before cancer took him. But even after death, he's still living life in excess because he's raising an excess of money for charity, raising his name. So we'll have that story, I believe, in Friday's Tulsa World, tulsaworld.com. And going back to Admiral Twin, I should throw out what they're doing this weekend to commemorate their 70th anniversary. And that is they're showing, which I think is really cool, they're showing The Outsiders Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, May 21 through May 23, all 3 nights, $10 a person. Normally, I think it's a carload. I forget how they price, but $10 a person to see The Outsiders at a place that appeared in the movie, because you know that the Admiral Twin actually appears in the movie, The Outsiders.
In fact, some people that I went to school with appear in the drive-in scene. The scene where I think it's Pony Boy and whoever Diane Lane plays, I can't think of her name, the character.
Sure.
Yeah, where they're having this discussion in the seating area. And the guys that you see behind them, who looks kind of perturbed at the noise they're making, is a guy I went to school with named Larry Cranberry. And I remember seeing him because his hair was terribly out of place for the time. But I thought, hey, I know that guy. It's the first person I knew I had seen in a movie. So
That's funny you say that, because growing up in Locust Grove, we had a move-in
From Tulsa, who went to our school, and he appeared, he was just a kid then, but he appeared as, one of the greasers in the background in The Outsiders. And because of that, he had like instant credibility, like, oh my gosh, this cat was in The Outsiders for 2 seconds. So shout out to Ty Caldwell for being in.
All right. Well, and where are they now, we say, but we probably shouldn't ask that. I didn't know where we are. We're kind of at the end of our time for this, but we thank you all for listening, and we will gladly see you next time. Take care.
Be safe and behave. Thanks.